The Florida sun has risen on a brand new series for a brand new league. The Noble Can-Am Series brings us multi-class racing between super late models and late model stocks, but that is not all. We're taking these multi-classes and we're putting them around 9 of the best road courses in North America between Canada and the United States, and we are going racing over the course of the summer of 2023 on iRacing.com. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Pit Stop TV. My name is Andrew Cardinale IV. I've got Zach Murtis alongside me. Zach, thanks for joining me today. This is going to be a fun one as we kick things off. Qualifying currently underway for these drivers at Homestead Miami Speedway. Let's talk about this track map. This is a very unorthodox way to get around Homestead Miami, Zach. It is not the oval, but it does include part of the oval. We're taking that infield road course on the inside of turns 1 and 2 and all the way down nearly to turns 3 and 4, but we are running on the oval in turns 3 and 4. And the league that this league was born from, the Superior Class Auto Racing Radical Series from late last year, ran on the other version of this road course that took the little bit through the infield in turns 3 and 4. These guys now extending up onto the oval, and they're pulling a $170 into turn 1. It's going to be a lot of fun for late models.
Absolutely. Usually when you think of Homestead Miami Speedway, you think the Ford EcoBoost 400 for NASCAR and these cup cars running around the oval, but no sirrees. Super late models and late model stock cars running a road course. I never thought I'd see it before in my life, but this is something super interesting. I was running test laps and it felt amazing. And just look at the schedule, Andrew. These are 9 great tracks all over North America that have amazing history behind them, and to take a short track dominant car that you would see at some place like Florence Motor Speedway or Hickory Motor Speedway and put them on a road course, oh my gosh, what a fantastic idea.
And this is something that the D-Line Racing League that we cover on Tuesdays will be doing for one round when they go to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in just a couple of weeks. But these guys are doing it for a full season. 9 races on some of America's best road courses. Miami, Lime Rock, Montreal, The Glen, Mid-Ohio, Mosport, Atlanta, Sonoma, and Long Beach Street Circuit to cap off this schedule all the way down on September 24th of this year. 9 of the best rounds you could possibly dream up as we get ready to go racing. Qualifying, as I mentioned, already underway and already halfway over as we are taking a look at the weather conditions. 77.5 degrees in the air, 82 degrees on the track as we take a look at our multi-class ticker, something we rarely ever use here at Pit Stop TV. We finally have a reason to use it today. Johnny Rapp, he was mired deep in the practice field, Zach. He has picked up the pace big time, second quick in qualifying in your super late model class. How about Cody Anderson? He's 4th quick in the supers, Jason Duckworth 5th, and we're still waiting on lap times from Zach Millette, who led practice, and from Sean Roberts for the supers. But down in late model stocks, Kevin McCann fastest. I'm assuming brother Brian McCann second fastest. Mark Thomas, Brian Rose, Jason Nethery, Neil Quick, they all come up the next few drivers. We are waiting especially on Steve Singer, though, out of that field as he led practice for the late model stocks. So we know who was fast in practice. We know who should be fast in qualifying. We're just waiting to see it all come together.
Hey, your driver who is top of the board. Well, speaking of the devil, he just went top of the board. Zach Millette has topped the board with a 1:18.1. It's a little slower than what he ran in practice, but obviously the qualifying pace is not indicative of race paces, I usually like to say. And you can see here coming through the S corners and down the center section of the back straight. This is just so interesting to see super late models and late model stock cars ripping around a road course. And for those who don't know at home, late model stock cars are a little different than the super late models. Different motor, different body style, different chassis. They have a lot of the same indications with the NASCAR noses and just overall identical features. The super late model has skewed bodies though, so it makes it a little bit different than those late model stock cars. And sometimes it's a little hard to tell with the spoilers. Some of them are clear, some of them are solid, but otherwise these cars are drastically different, as you can see by the speed charts.
Yeah, the supers are definitely faster as long as you have the setup decently right, but these guys are all on fixed setups, so they're a little bit closer than you might expect. In fact, Kevin McCann, late model stock provisional pole sitter, is only 6/100ths off of Cody Anderson, who is 6th in the supers. Chris Goins pulls a bit faster than Jason Nethery that lap. Troy Radford getting on track. How about Dalton Creech as well in car 36 getting on track here? Looks like his paint isn't quite loading, so we'll give him a chance and refresh trading paint. Same for Troy Radford of the 94. But Creech goes up to 9th quick as Brian Rose is done qualifying. Sean Roberts, it looks like, might be done. And Zach Millette has just wrapped up his qualifying session as well, it seems. So yeah, you mentioned the differences between these cars. The Super is an offset chassis. It's built to be asymmetrical to turn specifically left. You can turn right, as these guys are doing. It's just a little more difficult to get the car to turn right. Think the Twisted Sister generation of NASCAR Cup racing, the Gen 4s from not so long ago, even the COT, the Gen 5 cars, and heck, even the Gen 6s, because that's what this car is actually quite close to by body style. Those are offset chassis. They're built specifically to turn left. They don't take turning right quite as easily as the straight rail chassis for the late model stock, where it's a little bit more symmetrical. It's still built to go left, Zach, but it's slightly more symmetrical and tends to get around a road course a little bit easier. But the speed in these supers, we'll go on board here with Sean Roberts, and we'll pull up, well, we were going to pull up the telemetry. When they go off into turn 1 with a full chance to get up to speed, they're pulling 170 or so into turn 1, and that is scary here at Homestead. In fact, we can go back to the track map and take a look. This is a weird kind of road course. Turn 1 is not a heavy braking zone like you find at most road courses. It's actually more akin to Sonoma Raceway, turn 1, except when you get to turn 2, you're turning left instead of right up over a hill.
Plus, no elevation change. You're just dropping off some banking.
Yep. Now, there is a little bit of elevation change within the infield. You do actually drop down in turn 4. It's a bit like a bowl carousel section. Think Watkins Glen style almost, but you have a little bit more of a dip, and it's certainly much smaller. Before you come around the kink at turn 5, you come back up the road a little bit and fire up the straightaway to turn 6. It's kind of a double apex extended between the two apexes, hairpin, before you come around the kink at turn 7 and fire to the apex of turn 8, also a hairpin. Then you come back up onto the back straightaway through turn 9, which is just a flat out kink, and turns 11 and 10 and 11 should be flat out in these cars. They might have to lift on old tires, and the supers might have to lift or at least go part throttle, but the late model stock should be able to just pin it around the corners.
Absolutely, you can just be able to stick it and throw it around, really, and just think about how the track layout is. This is road course B. I think road course A takes the infield section off of 3 and 4.
Yes.
So you're giving them a lot more time to get up to speed, get down into turn 1. I want to get your opinion on this, Andrew. Do we see, as these drivers come off turn 11, start hitting the start-finish line, getting down into turn 1, do we see risk takers that think, maybe, just maybe, we can full throttle turn 1, try to gain some track position, or just get our nose ahead going into the braking zone? Or do we see guys taking it easy and maybe setting themselves up for turn 2, where they might be able to do a crossover move or set themselves up better for 3 and 4?
We do have a pretty decently sized field, so that would lead me to believe that we might actually see some interesting moves, and we'll probably see at least one car go 3 wide into turn 1, let's be honest. We have 25 cars today out of the 30 some odd that are registered for the series, so a really solid turnout to kick this series off. A big congratulations and shout out to Steve Singer and Jesse Redding and everybody else behind this series. This is a fantastic way to get the season going. So yeah, I think we see at least one car go to the inside. Now, we're going to go through the grid, and a little caveat, we do have the supers ahead of the late model stocks. So we have 7 supers in the field. We have 18 late model stocks tonight. Let's go through your grid and take a look at where everybody is starting this evening. On pole, car 315, Zach Millette will grid up first. Parker Collins was second fastest in qualifying. Starting from 3rd place, how about Johnny Rapp in car 52? Picked up a bunch of time from practice. Jason Duckworth will start from 4th. Starting 5th and 6th, that's Joe Tucker and Sean Roberts before the final car in your Super late model field, Cody Anderson, rather, rolls off from the 8th position. 7th position, see, I did it again. Steve Singer will be your pole sitter in late model stock racing, and we don't know yet, we're going to find out here soon, if they are going to separate between classes. I would anticipate that these guys will separate and let the supers have some room, but we don't know yet. So Steve Singer, your pole sitter in late model stock, he will roll off technically 8th overall. Rolling off 9th then, Kevin McCann. Brian McCann rolls off 10th.
Continuing on down the line, Mark Thomas and Brian Rose, 11th and 12th overall. Just 2 more late model stock cars, and I think we can see here, Andrew, these guys are actually starting to separate before we get back to the start-finish line. So I think what we were talking about, they will have a separated start. But continuing on down, we have in the 13th and 14th position overall, Chris Goins, or excuse me, I believe I mispronounced that one. I know
Chris Goins.
Thank you, Andrew. Chris Goins. I'm going to try to make sure I don't do that again. Jason Nethery in the 14th position, and then Neil Quick in the 2 car in 15th, and the 36th, Dalton Creech in the what I believe is going to be an outside starting spot. Robert Hackenbeck and Jesse Redding in the 17th and the 18th position. Cecil Rose and Josh Brown, 19th and 20th in the 88 and the 67, as these guys still separate up a little bit more as we come through turn 5.
Turn 7, 6 and 7 at the end of the straightaway. Now, I believe we're going to see these guys actually flip. So I believe Beetle, while he will still be starting 21st overall, I believe he'll be starting 14th on the outside. At least if they get this completely organized correctly, because Steve Singer has flipped over to the inside for his pole starting position of late model stock. But anyways, Leonardo Elijah will grade up 22nd overall, 23rd overall, Mark Truxell, then Trey Radford, and finally Matthew Kopp at the back of the field. So we will have a split start, which means we'll have 2 starting procedures, only 1 safety car on the racetrack. But this is the lovely thing about multi-class racing. As we get ready to go green flag racing in just a moment, let's take a look at your race details. Brought to you by Whiplash Media Sim Cams. Of course, we always love to have Whiplash Media Sim Cam pictures on board here at Pit Stop TV, bringing you all of these sights and sounds. And this is a 60-minute or 38-lap race. Steve Singer anticipates these being lap races as opposed to minute races, but we'll see. We do have 45% fuel load to prompt a couple of pit stops. We anticipate 2, and they do have 2 change sets of tires in the pits, 1 fast repair, and penalties every 21 incidents. So, down to the front stretch and into the start zone. The super late model field just ahead of the late model stock field. Green flag for the supers. They come across the line. How about for the late model stocks? Green flag there as well. Down to turn 1. And we get this season underway for the No Bull Can-Am Series. Already out front, a lead change in the supers as Zach Millette got passed up in turns 1 and 2, and Parker Collins took over. Down in the late model stocks, Steve Singer gets away with the race lead. Mark Thomas goes up and passes both McCanns and goes to 2nd spot. Brian Rose 5th, Chris Groen 6th, and already Steve Singer is on the back end of the supers, dealing with Cody Anderson out front. And if Steve wants to get away from the late model stocks behind him, he's got to try and pass that Cody Anderson machine in the corners. However, Anderson straight on through at turn 8. Where is he going?
No brakes. That's all you can say. No brakes right there. Might have missed his braking zone and was just trying to find a safe way to get through without taking anybody out. But luckily, nobody involved. He's able to keep it going, get it back straight, and continue on. One of the super late model entries, you can see the speed difference compared to the late model stocks. Getting back up to speed, getting around what is Speedway 3 and 4, and hopefully making sure that that does not happen again.
The field rips by the speed shot for the first time, and there is definitely a straight line speed disparity between classes, and that's what I think will be the talking point of this season at a lot of these courses. Cody Anderson left Steve Singer as soon as they got out of turn 7 and drove away by an extra few tenths and then just straight lined the hairpin of turn 8. And Anderson is now having a lot of trouble right now. Has no grip or something. I'm not really sure what's going on, but we have just had a lead change. Millette goes right back on through on Parker Collins. That is good for the lead overall, and Millette now pulling away. He's already got a half second, while Steve Singer has pulled away from Mark Thomas, and one car off. That's Sean Roberts in the dust. That is now your 6th place in Supers. He gives a spot here to Steve Singer.
That promotes Steve Singer to 6th overall, so we've got one car in the grass. That is Cecil Rose, one of your late model stock car entries.
Cecil trying to get back on the racetrack, and he will eventually. Hattenback and Redding, they have crashed in the hairpin at turn 8. So problems for them. Damage. And looking at Hattenback, Redding still way out to the outside as he tries to get righted. And Zach Millette purple that lap as he fires into turns 1 and 2. So already these guys spreading out a bunch in our opening race of the season. Here's Kevin McCann and Mark Thomas. This for 2nd in late model stocks. And in case you get a little bit lost, in case you're curious, there is a class guide on the right side of the screen as one car is off. That is Mark Tucker, Joe Tucker rather, on the outside of turn number 3. And something has happened to that 13 car.
Well, the 42 of Anderson has moved through and taken the 6th spot away in the super late model category, but who's to say he'll hold it for too long as we take a look at the replay.
This is Joe Tucker.
Got in too deep. Maybe wheel hopped it a little bit. And
a bit of rear brake, it looks like, too.
At least he kept it on track, though. That's a good saving grace, but a little bit of contact with some of the late model stocks.
I do want to take a look at the incident a lap ago for Jesse Redding and the 99 of Robert Hattenback. So here's the onboard with Redding down in the late model stock field, and they have got all kinds of sun glare here to turn 8. This could have been part of the problem. It's hard to say. Oh, Redding. Well, that's exactly what does it. Redding braking on the grass does not work, and he collects the 99 there of Hattenback.
He just dipped those right side tires onto the grass a little bit, and it really prevented him from being able to slow the car down. Grass is like ice with these cars, especially on these kinds
with
of
any
flights.
Cars.
Really. The second you touch that grass, it just...
Parker Collins in trouble from 2nd. He will find a way back on, maybe right in front of the late model stock leader, and he's going to give Steve Singer a little bit of trouble getting going. Collins down to the apex there at turn 4. He gets in line right in front of 2nd place Kevin McCann down in the late model stock class. And here comes Collins' speed down the straightaway. The Supers have such a much larger motor. They get going, but then they have to stop earlier for the corners, and the late model stocks then can approach. And now Singer has got McCann for the race lead.
They are nose to tail coming into the next corner, into the hairpin. Got that sun glare, taking a look. McCann is not going to go for it. He's a little too far back. Looks like Singer goes defensive into the hairpin, but now you've got Thomas in the 50 coming in here. It's now a 3, maybe a 4-car race going into Speedway turn 3.
Up back onto the oval, 1 car pitting. I believe that is Sean Roberts on the access road. Yes, it is. Problems here early for Sean Roberts. I don't know why he'd be pitting already unless he's already got an incident penalty. As we take a look at the driver eye view from the helmet of driver 66. So move Steve Singer and that bunch up 1 more position overall. And on the ticker, on the left side of the screen, those deltas on the right side next to the names, those are tracking to the class leaders. So Kevin McCann's time is tracking to Steve Singer, as you would expect within that late model stock field, the bottom of your ticker. Sean Roberts in the pit lane, a little bit confused, but he comes in, gets fuel, and we'll head back out.
What the ticker doesn't show, though, is that Steve Singer has moved in to 5th overall. So he's the class leader for the late model stock cars, but he's also 5th overall on track. Now, if these late model stock cars keep dropping like flies, who knows? You might see a late model stock car get an overall win here.
If the Supers drop like flies.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Well, battle for 1st and 2nd, Steve Singer, Kevin McCann has not gone away. And what this feels like to me, if you recall a couple of years ago on iRacing, all we had was LMP2 and GT3 for the IMSA races. This feels exactly like that, where you've got a few prototypes out front. They're a little more volatile, they're a little harder to drive, but the GT field is absolutely packed, and that's what most drivers tend to run. In this case, we're seeing that. We have a few more volatile super late models. They're faster in the straight line and a little harder to drive. The late model stocks are a little more grippy, they're a little easier to drive, and there's a whole lot more of them. So they end up being kind of the premier class almost as far as actual wheel-to-wheel racing. I mean, Zach Millette already has 6 seconds on Johnny Rapp. I mean, he is gone.
I never thought that I would love the image of seeing late model stock cars bounce over turtle curves, like as if they were sports cars. That just seems so amazing. It provides a whole new level of immersion when it comes to iRacing. So we've got one motor.
Hattenback in trouble. I'd be surprised if he makes it back to the pit lane.
That is a lot of smoke coming out of that car.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't obscure anyone's vision going into the couple of next corners ahead. As you can see, everyone just trying to ease on by. I'm trying to wonder what would have ended up happening to where Hattenbeck might have blown a motor.
There would have been an errant downshift, and I think it was. So let's ride on board in the driver's eye view. And of course, he already had some damage from getting T-bone really, by Jesse Redding. But here's the onboard with Hattenback as he goes off into turn 1. Listen to the downshift. Over-revved it immediately. Smoke out the rear. So a money shift there for Hattenback, just downshifted too early, and that was right in front of the 43 car of Leonardo Elijah, who goes on by, along with the 66 of Sean Roberts, who is a super late model amidst all of the late model stocks. So Hattenback in trouble. He is limping it back around to the pit lane, though, and is now onto the access road in oval turn 3. So he'll get back around eventually.
Yeah, just too high in the revs, really. One thing some drivers tend to forget is that these cars, or not just these cars, any race car in general, there is somewhat of a certain rev limit where you need to be shifting these cars, and if you shift them too high, it ends up causing too many revs in the next gear you go down into, which causes the engine to pretty much, well, drop the transmission through the floor and say, well, see you later.
Fast repair taken there for Jesse Redding, and it looks like that might be the early part of the pit window opening up. As he comes in, takes fuel, takes a fast repair, gets back going. Same deal here for Hattenback, although, well, the smoke has ceased. We'll see if he actually pulls away in a few seconds, or, yep, there we go. So, fast repair taken by Robert Hattenback as well. So that turn 8 incident has rectified, or been rectified, I should say, as both of those drivers take fast repairs. Meanwhile, look at this fight right behind Redding. Duckworth gets passed up by Parker Collins as Collins tries to get back through this field of super late models out front.
He's absolutely ripping through this field. The only driver left that he could be able to pass would be Rapp, and he's only about 2 seconds up the road, and then it's a further 9 seconds to Zach Millette. So you're looking to take second away, but you got to be driving one mean machine if you're going to go get that lead here.
And there is Johnny Rapp, some 9 seconds behind our overall race leader of Zach Millette. And we'll be saying that a lot this season, I think. And Collins already taking a few tenths off of that lead. I think already what you're seeing as far as who's quick is going to be this way most of the season. Zach Millette and Parker Collins already feel like the top 2 here in this series, at least for the super late models. I think the late model stocks are much more wide open. In fact, McCann might have a move here on Steve Singer as they come through the oval up out of Speedway 4. McCann looks to the inside. Is he going to have something here for turn 1?
Nothing yet. Still looking, taking that look, and Singer goes defensive. Do we see heavy braking into turn 2? A little wiggle. They are going to stay bumper, nose to bumper as they roll through turns 3 into 4. Down the backstretch going into 5, and Singer is just absolutely on rails in these technical sections, and he is gapping McCann by another half a second.
Into the heavy braking zone, and they close back up. Meanwhile, worth taking a look at this pocket of super late models. You've got 4 out front of the entire late model stock field, and then as Neil Quick passes Chris Goins ahead of this group, you've got Cody Anderson, Joe Tucker, and Sean Roberts. 3 supers in a row. The 42, 13, and 66 another 13 seconds back as they approach Jason Nethery blinking in that white and red 34. Anderson's going to make a move here on Nethery, and, well, he was going to make a move. Backs out for turn 8, I think a little bit wise, but here comes the 13 of Tucker for a battle in class.
Drivers are still very close together, and Tucker is getting a great run out of the hairpin down what is oval back straightaway, and they are going into oval turn 3 with a big head of steam, trying to split the late model stock cars.
Anderson very much safer in this approach. Tucker is much more confident, it looks like, and Anderson is much more, I think, unsure of himself in that car. He's being a lot more easy as Nethery goes right back to the inside of Anderson. Oh, a couple of cars off. Neil Quick out in the dirt, along with Joe Tucker. Quick is going to fall back behind these supers now and is 8th in class as Parker Collins has just had another problem in the hairpin. That brings the 21 of Redding and the 6 of Singer right behind him.
And he lost a good few seconds up to Johnny Rapp, and now he's going to have to play a little defensive for the rest of the race. Well, not the rest of the race, but the rest of the way down the straightaway at least.
Take a look at what just happened here to Parker Collins in the 87. Too much rear brake, yeah. Locked up the rears, wheel hopped. We don't hear wheel hop much anymore in stock car racing, but that's exactly what that was.
Yeah, it's one driver. It's a mentality as a driver. You want to push the braking zone. You want to push as hard as you can in the car to be able to gain as much, something your competitor might not be doing. He may be braking earlier, so your next thing is to brake later and see if you can get the power down quicker, or just try to outsmart them in any way, shape, or form. And he just got a little too much going into the corner, and the car just outbraked him.
Mark Thomas has gone by Kevin McCann for second. We missed this as we were checking out a couple of replays and other battles. So car 50 up to second in late model stocks, and that moves McCann into third, also McCann in fourth. So Kevin McCann ahead of Brian McCann. Brian Rose is fifth. Chris Goins is sixth, as they will have super late models coming up on them somewhat soon, about 5-6 seconds back. Before those supers get to them, as Kevin McCann very close there to the rear end of Mark Thomas through. We've got 2 different hairpins here, so we'll say hairpin 1, turn 6.
Yeah, these guys are so close together. It's so great to see this kind of racing. It's one thing that I have loved seeing on the iRacing sim for actually quite a few years now. When NASCAR started doing a few things during the pandemic, you had the Pro Invitational, and they took a lot of cool ideas with weeknight racing, and they even took these super late models and used them as an IROC style. And I just love seeing leagues and other series branch out using cars that are generally catered towards one criteria of racing and using them for another, as we have one of the supers, Joe Tucker, off the track.
Joe Tucker out in the dirt. Here comes Kevin McCann on Mark Thomas. This is a battle down to turn number 1. McCann goes on through for second. Thomas will fall into third, and I feel like these two might go back and forth here for a little bit.
These guys are definitely just trying to figure out where they can settle in, as we're only 12 laps in, but this is allowing Singer to pull out to a 2.5-second lead as these guys just continue to fight and battle hard for second, with only Brian McCain just about a second behind them.
Now, the ticker is set to automatically detect the best format to use. In this case, it is preferring the lap format, which means we are expecting to go to the end of the lap count as opposed to the end of the time. So this is, again, a 38 lap or 60-minute race, meaning they will time limit at 60 minutes. Otherwise, they'll run the full distance of these 38 laps as Parker Collins around again. He's got the pace. He does not have the discipline on either pedal right now. That is the third big mistake we have seen out of Parker Collins. And I hate to call it that black and white, Zach, but he is so quick. He qualified right up there with Millette, but he is, for some reason, 25 seconds behind Millette because of little things like this. And this time it's on corner exit after he taps the curbs, just goes right around.
Yeah, just too quick to get on the power. It really snapped around on him there on exit. You can tell these cars, just like you said, Andrew, they're built to turn left, and sometimes they lack in the grip department. And, well, it just kicked around on him as we see one car here, one of the super late models, Johnny Rapp, on pit road for a scheduled stop, it looks like.
And this is the next thing I was going to get to, since we are approaching already halfway in this race. In fact, 25 minutes are complete, working on 26. We are through 13 laps. We're right at a third of this race complete by laps, nearly already halfway. This is a difference that I did not expect, actually. We've completed more time than I think Steve Singer had expected at this point. The pace may be a little bit lower than what he was hoping for. Regardless, Rapp comes in for service, 4 tires back out there after 22 seconds. And with these pit stops, Zach, do we think they're actually going to take 4 tires every time? I don't think so.
With the stops being 21 seconds long at best, I don't think 4 tires the entire time is going to be the way to go. But that opens up interesting strategy options. Do you take 4 tires now and 2 later, or 2 now and 4 later? Do you want to set yourself up for the shorter run or for the longer run? It's all these questions you really want to ask yourself in your strategy to see where you can differentiate from the car in front of you or even the cars behind you so you can extend your gap. It's a lot easier of a decision to make when you have such a massive lead like Zach Millette, or it's harder to figure out what you want to do when you have such a shorter lead like Singer in the sticks.
Well, you only have 2, maybe 3 right-hand turns in this course, so this is definitely a case where I think you want to take maybe right sides or none at all. And if I pull up the track map here, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's only really 3 spots, well, we'll say 3, where you actually turn to the right. Otherwise, you are turning left this entire lap, and quite frankly, Zach, I think that very much opens up the possibility of taking 2 tires. No other road course this season would I suggest that, aside from maybe Lime Rock. But here, I think you could get away with changing right side tires because of the load in the oval. And you might be okay, as we've got a problem for Joe Tucker and Mark Truxell in the back.
It's just more calamity for these guys who did not need these incidents, as they are already struggling. Going down to turn 1.
This is Tucker, a super late model, and he just gets loose going into turn 3. So he goes around and rolls right in front of the 43 of Elijah, then rolls back into Mark Truxell. He was trying to get out of the way and ended up getting more in the way. More often than not, if you hold where you are, it's better off, even if you're broadside blocking the racetrack, because then at least people know where to go. In this case, though, that wasn't the case, as we have Parker Collins in the pit lane.
Like another scheduled stop as he pulls into his pit box. Let's see here if he's going to take 4 tires, maybe gas and go. See him in the box.
Right sides at least.
Right sides are up. It's going to take about at least 11 seconds for that stop to go through. Got Cecil Rose taking 4 tires and gas, out and away.
Waiting on Collins. Left sides.
4 tires.
And he'll pull away after about 22 seconds, call it 22.38, right on top of Cecil Rose. That got a little chaotic there on exit. Now we have Cody Anderson and Joe Tucker. Oh, and Anderson's got tons of left side damage to that 42 car. Tucker really coming in as well.
I'm not sure how we kind of missed Anderson not getting any damage or getting into an incident. He could have just got it from just a mistake or something that we might have not have caught. And looks like he will take a fast repair, as Tucker takes a fast repair as well.
Here comes Steve Singer as we are right at halfway. This is a one-stop race for sure. Singer comes in, McCann, Mark Thomas. Brian McCann stays out 1 lap. So our pit cycle is going to be off, at least in the late model stocks, as we still await Zach Millette and Jason Duckworth. So some alternate strategies across the board. More so in the supers, a wide variety of drivers coming in on different laps. As here's McCann, Singer, Thomas, Rose, Gones, Nethery is in, Neil Quick.
Singer with gas only. I saw no tires on that car.
I like that move. I really like that move.
Sure.
I don't think you're going to pull 11 seconds on Steve Singer, quite frankly.
Well, Zach Millette has pulled 23 seconds on Duckworth in the 73, so it could theoretically be possible.
That's a whole different case. That's Zach Millette, and we don't count him in a league of anybody else. He should be in an alien class out here in a street stock, honestly. He'd still lap the field. But, I think no tires is the way to go. The track is not that hot. 81 degrees now on track. These tires can definitely do an hour of this racing. At least close to it. I think they can definitely do probably 45 minutes pretty comfortably. I think that's the length or close to the length of a fuel run anyways for a NASCAR race. These short track tires are a bit different. I think they're perfectly within their limits here, doing 60 minutes of racing on this set.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll see another tire war between Hoosier and Goodyear then.
Well, built for different things, but I do see your point as Brian McCann leaves the pit lane, and he as well opts for no tires. You're either taking tires.
Oh, we got one car off.
Wow, McCann goes on by Steve Singer, and Mark Thomas goes off. Let's check into this before I go into my next spiel about pit strategy. This is interesting.
That was an interesting development right there coming off pit road.
No, this is great. Watch Steve Singer here first. He goes straight off in the dirt. Not the kind of thing I would have expected. He catches the grass.
And he goes straight into the grass.
Here comes Kevin McCann.
First time tonight.
And then Mark Thomas just goes off. He just went deep into turn 2. That allowed Brian McCann to go on through. So a couple of really big issues for two really great drivers in the front of the field here in late model stocks. That puts Singer now a half second behind Kevin McCann, and everything changes. But as we go on board with the number 6 car, you're either giving up 11 seconds or you're getting 11 seconds in the pit stop, basically. Tires versus no tires. I don't think it's really worth it to... It might be worth it to split up and do two. I don't know about that. But clearly you see the pit time without tires, 12, 13 seconds. It'd be another 9, 10 seconds if you were to take tires. I don't think the benefit from having tires is going to outweigh that loss.
Well, it was definitely an interesting development, and we've got one more car going off in the dirt right in front of the late model stock cars. That was very, very close for McCann, and there's just so much time being given up here. You had Steve Singer go off into the grass on the lap previous, and actually coming on to the hairpin before what is the oval back straightaway. Hattenback was around in front of the leaders and caused them to check up a little bit.
Johnny Rapp has company here from Parker Collins. Collins not able to find a way by just yet. Steve Singer in trouble in the hairpin. Was leading this race until the pit stops, and now there's a problem for car 6. Let's take a look as to what happened here for Steve Singer. Pole sitter in late model stocks, had been leading until the pit stops. What happens here in turn 6? Deep on the brakes, looped it around. Wow.
The problem we've been seeing all night from these guys, and just a little bit of contact from some cars behind, and it looks like Singer gets it back going, but it's no telling how many positions he'll lose from that incident.
Whole top 3. He is now 4 seconds behind Mark Thomas. Lets Duckworth go by on the inside there. That really changes everything in our late model stock race. Look at this, though. You've got Johnny Rapp trying to get by Jason Duckworth, or I think that was Matthew Kopp, actually, he just passed. Mark Thomas racing here with Mark Truxell. A whole lot of who knows what, a whole lot of hoopla going on here towards the front of the field. Meanwhile, Parker Collins right in front of these guys as Thomas gets by Truxell. And now, Kevin and Brian McCann are separated by 5 seconds. 4 seconds, Zach. McCann is gone. Well, McCann is gone, sure. Kevin McCann is gone right now. 4 seconds back to Brian McCann. That is a huge bit of separation.
That's a very big separation. And as Singer is still trying to gain back positions, passing a few of the late model stock cars that have been struggling a little bit.
He just passed a Super. He just passed Duckworth.
Oh, that is true. Passing a super late model. I keep confusing the Supers and the late model stock cars for some reason, as Millette has just gone fastest on what I believe is new tires.
He did take 4 tires. with all that time out there, he could warrant taking the 10 extra seconds in the box to get those tires, as Duckworth uses the motor to get right past Steve Singer. And there you see Matthew Kopp as well in the 22. Very tight, way up the racetrack in oval 3 and 4. But he doesn't have to worry. He has got plenty of time before and behind him. Meanwhile, Chris Goins actually closing in a little bit on Brian Rose. We haven't seen many of these battles deeper in the field. There's been so much going on. But Goins here on the 28, closing in on Rose in the 89. Well, a nice little fight here developing for the 5th position in late model stocks. This is also for the top 10 overall.
Yeah, this is one battle we haven't really been able to focus on with all the action going on front with the late model stock cars who've been leading this race in class, and then some of the super late models who've been struggling here and there. So it's nice to see people just still having it out, even though they're a little bit deeper in the field. As you can see, getting nicely into that braking zone. A very lovely apex, as these two individuals are still just trying to figure out what they can do to be able to, well, better their race at the moment.
Cody Anderson's coming up on Troy Radford, and this might get a little bit interesting. Here is this little group of cars as they work through the opening sector of the lap. Jesse Redding right on the back end of Anderson. They are 14th, 15th, and 16th on the racetrack overall, with Eric Beadle right behind them in the 119. Truxtell, Cecil Rose, and Dalton Creech all fall into the back end of the field overall. And in late model stocks, as Brian McCann gets passed up by Parker Collins, just kind of doing some work around the field, checking in where everybody's at. And Mark Thomas, slow again in the opening sector, loses lots of time, and suddenly Steve Singer might have a podium right back in front of him. This could be very interesting.
Guys are just making so many different mistakes, and it's so hard to keep track. Oh, we got another car around. That's Anderson, the super late model again.
That is out of turn 4? No, that's out of turn 6, 7.
That is a lot of front end damage.
It's out of turn 7, heading down towards turn 8 in that second hairpin. And he's going to take out Parker Collins, maybe. Contact there after braking on the grass. You never, ever want to brake on the grass. Doesn't matter what car you're in. If you brake on the grass, it's going to be a bad day. But let's see what happened to Anderson to begin with. It's a little late. This is a big-time issue for this driver. Just got loose.
Very, very loose. And there's the contact with the wall. Slides it backwards just a little bit. Then gets it rolling back around once there is a bit of a clear track for him to do so.
Meanwhile, back live, Jason Duckworth working on Johnny Rapp for 4th in super late model competition. Rapp way wide here at turn 3. The Mission Barbecue 52 way out wide. Love the Challenger decals on that car, though.
It's a very good exit coming off of turn 4 going into 5.
Listen to the throttle application here on board with Duckworth. This is down to turn 6. As they exit here, listen to the throttle application. This is interesting.
Nice and smooth on the throttle, getting it pretty well
eggshells.
Into the next row.
Walking on eggshells. It's really interesting listening to these guys. And you can kind of watch the revs and get an idea for it too. Just how careful they're being, and really early shifts into third gear. They do not trust this car on throttle at all until it's perfectly straight.
To be perfectly honest, I wouldn't either. It's just you've been on here on old tires, and you don't want to risk anything at the moment. As we've got, this is interesting.
Sean Roberts, remember he pitted very early in this race, so he's coming back in. I think he was expecting a 2-stop race, and it has definitely changed. I think if we had gone the distance of 38 laps, it would be a 2-stop race. However, that's not what's happening here. We are going to end up timing out a little bit early from the looks of things, and Roberts then has to come back in for fuel as we have 20 minutes to go. So problems there for Roberts. What this does, Zach, is put Kevin McCann 2nd overall as the late model stock leader.
I have no words, honestly. That's a surprising development. Brian McCann is 4th
Oh,
overall.
Steve! Deep into turn 6, and that turns the 50 of Mark Thomas around. That was some heads-up racing that unfortunately ended in one car spun and one car pulling away with third. Certainly not at all intentional from Steve Singer, but let's get a look back here at what just happened between the 6 and 50. Mark Thomas being caught up. This is down to turn number 6, and watch Singer into the inside of the corner. Wheel hops, boom.
Very, very deep. That was very... what's the word I'm looking for here? Just he looked way too. We'll go with that. He's a little too far back. You can see here he was at least 1 to 2 car lengths back, and there's the braking. You can see the rear end starting to slide. He's already wheel hopping. Cannot get the car woed up.
It's not often you actually see the rears lock up. There you did for the 6.
Yeah, it's not something you too often see when it comes to what is, again, predominantly a short track car. It's always the front brakes you see, but just bad timing.
Cody Anderson is our first retirement. He has pulled that car behind the wall, 25th overall, and of course, last, 7th place in super late models. That means at the very least, every late model stock is picking up 1 position overall, as Chris Goins works here on Brian Rose, this now for the 4th position in class. Goins kind of falling back on this straightaway down towards turn number 8. Robert Hatton back into the pit lane. And this is definitely early, a little bit on the unscheduled side. Might be coming in for tires again.
I believe he's also taking another fast repair. He was stopped in the hairpin for about a lap or 2, stuck in the grass, just trying to figure out how he could get that car back rolling, and was able to get it back to pit road, and hopefully he can get some good service there as Parker Collins is taking to pit road. Definitely an interesting development here when we thought most of these super late models were going to end up taking 1 stop.
This could be incidents where he's had a lot of issues in this race. This could be an incident penalty for Parker Collins. No, he's going to pull into the pit box. This is for service. I can't imagine the right side goes up. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Side goes up. Did we see left side, though?
I'm surprised by this. Very, very surprised by this.
11 seconds on the right. Left side goes up.
Wow.
22, 23 seconds should be the cut.
Are we going to see this race be a 2-stop?
He is holding in the pit lane a little bit longer than expected. 26 second point 8.5, I believe, as he is out and away. 5th in class, 1 lap down to Zach Millett.
I'm a little bit shocked, I'll be honest, as here's Johnny Rapp and Jason Duckworth for 2nd now in super late models. This race continues to surprise me. Nothing today has gone as expected, aside from the fact that we do at least have the multi-class ticker operational here at Pit Stop TV. That's about the one thing that has gone right, and the fact that Zach Millett is clear of 2nd place in class by 39 seconds.
And Parker Collins went a lap down while he was on pit road. The next one up the road from him is Sean Roberts, who is 1 minute and 3 seconds off of the lead for the super late models. We see another car taking to pit road. That is the
Brian
89.
Rose. I'm really surprised by this. You know what? This could be drivers looking at the lap count as opposed to the time limit. They only have 16 minutes to go in this race. They're not going to get through 12 more laps. Not at 1 minute 20? Surely no.
I feel like it could be more around the 20-minute mark. I'm seeing the elapsed time in the session as 40 minutes. So these drivers might have a chance to make the lap count. It's definitely really up in the air, though.
That's interesting. The ATVO... I wish I could show you. ATVO timing and scoring says 15 minutes. We might be going to our lap count instead.
With all due respect to ATVO, they may have counted qualifying as well in terms of the overall time limit.
No, that'd be 10 minutes.
Ah.
No, that wouldn't be... it's very much session specific. But I'm very confused by this situation. So this race by time, as here comes Johnny Rapp.
Another super late model.
If I do math manually of the session, independently from the session, this race should have started at 8:30 Eastern, say 8:33 with session time, so we should be racing to 9:33. So you're right, that's 21 minutes. That might be just long enough to get these laps in. It very well could be, as we have 12 laps to go, actually. Yeah. Maybe it's a lap race. That changes the entire game here. They pitted right around, what, 13, 14 laps complete? 15?
About that. Rapp has actually gone 1 lap down in his time on pit road. He's been passed by Parker Collins and Sean Roberts.
I mean, a third of the race is 13 laps, roughly. So
about 12 and a half.
Right.
Ish.
12 and 2/3, I think. So to go 14 is certainly not good for one, but good for 2 stops. It's interesting. I did not expect this at all. Breaking more and more expectations as Troy Radford leaves the pit lane here. And will... Actually, yeah, there we go. He is leaving the pit lane, back onto the racetrack. Meanwhile, here comes Chris Goins onto the pit lane. So clearly, these drivers were counting on 2 stops, as we have 11 laps to go.
Definitely an interesting strategy to see. I assumed that these drivers would bring out at least to the halfway mark to extend their fuel mileage, maybe get tires, see how things were going to shape up and play out. But 2-stopping the race is just very interesting to me. I honestly, like you, Andrew, this race continues to surprise me.
Well, by laps, I think they have to. By time, they should be further ahead. Unless... I'm very much perplexed. Between the time the ATVO is reporting, which is usually accurate, in every other timed race, it's always been accurate. This might be the outlier. This particular format might be throwing it for a little bit of a mix-up. But usually, the time remaining has always been accurate in ATVO. I'm very surprised that it really doesn't seem to be, because 12 minutes, it's 9:14 Eastern, so 12 minutes, even 13, would be a 9:27. That's still 3 minutes shy. As we take a look at Zach Millette, your overall race leader, he has got all kinds of lap traffic ahead. He's clearly been dealing with it this entire race. He's lapped up through 10th place, but here he comes onto the pit lane. Joe Tucker in trouble in turn 6, and we're working towards nighttime as Anderson's back on track and Hattenback is out in the grass.
Reminder, folks, these cars do not have lights. And Andrew, I believe the term that you were looking for while going over all that time and laps is that we have been bamboozled, sir.
Pretty much. Here's a look at Hattenback. Down into turns 1 and 2, and the mistake is going to be in turn 3.
Drove it in too deep, hit the grass, and there she went. It's like you're sliding on ice once you touch that grass.
That's the issue there for Hattenback. It ends up in the barrier. Now, this racetrack will light up here very soon. How much of the infield is lit, I don't know. But it will light up here very shortly. There are quite a few lights in the infield as well that should light this place up decently nicely as Millette takes full service. This briefly, Zach, puts Kevin and Brian McCann out front, 1st and 2nd overall.
For how long, though? That is the question.
Good question. But Kevin McCann in late model stocks is currently your overall race leader. And this series is somewhat loosely based on Trans Am racing with TA and TA2. I don't think this is what was expected, though. This kind of day at the races. It's been interesting, though. I must say, it has been a hoot. Let's take a look at your race schedule again this season. Miami today, Lime Rock next week. Now, we are questionable still as far as making the broadcast next week. It is Father's Day. We'll let you know on social media very soon, I'm sure, throughout the week. But then round 3, we go to Montreal. The Glen for round 4 is going to be a special one for sure. Steve Singer and much of this league is from the New York area. Mid-Ohio is questionable on our broadcast schedule. We're trying to be there for that race as Millette goes by Brian McCann. Mid-Ohio and then Mosport for round 6 we should be at. Atlanta, though, is questionable again and likely a miss for us, unfortunately. And then Sonoma and Long Beach we definitely should be at. Those last 2 races of this season. So very much looking forward to those races, especially as we get into California and wrap this season up. 2 really solid racetracks to close this thing out.
Definitely, and just looking at, I was looking at the timing and scoring while you were going over the schedule. And like we've been covering most of the broadcast, the class stickers only show you the difference between class leader to drivers behind. So Zach Millette leading overall in super late models, and the ticker to Duckworth is how close he is to Millette. I was looking at the ticker compared to overall, which right now is Kevin McCain. He has an 11-second lead over Zach Millette, who is on fresh tires, has more horsepower. How much time do you give it until he gets a, oh, well, never mind, he's pitting.
There's your answer. And it's 8 seconds anyways. It had to come down a lot in just that lap since Millette went by the flag stand to now. And whoa, that was aggressive for sure towards the pit lane. This will also bring, who is that behind him? Is that is Hattenback again.
Ooh.
This is his 3rd pit stop. Millette, purple. Anyhow, there is Kevin McCann in the pit lane. And Steve Singer also comes in as one car spins the background. I believe that was Elijah. Leonardo Elijah, and yes, it was. He also pits.
Do we see them taking tires? I believe McCain is already out of pit road. Oh.
Here is Steve Singer into his box, not going up on the jacks. And I think this will be the dominant strategy of the season, to be honest with you. If you can manage your tires long enough, or at least decently enough, I think refusing the extra time in the pit box is going to be the way to go. So Steve Singer down and away, no tires. Now this puts him 21 seconds, though, behind Kevin McCann. 22 seconds. He's not making that time up, although we do expect Brian McCann in at any point in time. Neil Quick into the pit lane in car 2.
We're talking about managing tires. Let's talk about managing your entry into pit road. As Kevin McCann, he went very deep into pit road to be able to extend his lead out a little bit. He was only about, what was it, around 9 to 8 seconds? No, he was 18 seconds in front of Singer in the 6, who was still running 3rd overall. And now he stretched that out to an even larger margin as Brian McCann has taken to pit road.
Kevin McCann also working the fuel load. Only 9.3 seconds of fuel taken for that 33 car versus the nearly 13 seconds for Steve Singer. So Kevin McCann's gotten this deal figured out. Brian McCann as well. 9.3 seconds. So they have got a strategy. They've been saving fuel. And in road racing, especially in timed races such as this one, or even lap races, this is the strategy, especially towards this length, 1 hour races. Watch on Thursdays. Watch the North American Racing League on this channel, on Pit Stop TV on Thursdays. We're going to have a lot of the same conversations. Tires or no tires, it's often no tires. And saving fuel. That is the name of the game. I think we're going to see the same thing here in this No Bull Can-Am series.
One thing that makes it a lot easier nowadays for these drivers is one thing iRacing introduced in the last season. Well, actually, we're still in the current season. They introduced it this season at the start of the year. The auto fuel setting, which allows drivers to set the amount of laps that they still need to run. iRacing calculates a margin lap from where they pit to how long it takes to get to the end of the race, and it sets the fuel load for them to be able to plan how many gallons they accurately need to take to make it to the end. You take a little bit of fuel data and it punches it in and it says, hey, with how you're doing, this is how much fuel you need to make it to the end of the race, so we're going to set it for you, and you don't have to worry about it.
It's a new feature that I've not been able to use yet. I don't race nearly enough, if ever.
I do.
Well, yeah, you won this past Tuesday's D-Line Racing League race in a late model stock car, might I add, on Pit Stop TV at Phoenix Raceway 2008. So just a few days ago, you were in Victory Lane on Pit Stop TV. How about that? Now you're broadcasting with us on a Sunday night for late models on a road course.
Don't forget, I was in the Pit Stop TV car, too.
That's right. Pit Stop TV colors, they do you wonders. And drivers out there, if you are missing a paint scheme for this series, hey, we can hook you up. We know a paint scheme. We've got one, and you can run it. It might be a little bit yellow for your liking, but Pit Stop TV colors are sure to add at least 1.5 horsepower.
Hey, yellow's my favorite color, and you painted an absolutely great paint scheme for that car.
Whoa, Neil Quick! Well, quickly off course.
Yellow's not for everybody, though.
That is true, as Neil is going to try and get back on the course here. It is difficult with these grippy tires on those late model stock to actually get the rear tires to spin. Neil eventually gets it to happen as Cody Anderson goes by in the very mangled 42 car. By the way, since he's back in the race, Mark Truxell now is last out of this race currently, 8 laps down. Robert Hattenback has been in the pit lane for 5 minutes. He is 6 laps down. Anderson has just passed him as Neil Quick gets back rolling. Out front, Zach Millette is leading over, oh wow, is that Josh Brown? That is Josh Brown off the racetrack out of turn 8. Car 67 out of Georgia. But Zach Millette has now got a 21-second race lead as we come around. We will take 3 laps to go. And the way this timing has worked out, I'm honestly very surprised. I don't know if ATVO was trying to calculate to the end of this race by laps or if it was actually giving me accurate lap time, or I guess time information. Zach, I'll ask you, what is the estimated time remaining that you can give us here per what you're seeing in the session?
We have about 7 minutes left on the clock. Actually, about 6.5 minutes left on the clock, and they still have about 3 laps to go. They're clocking about 1 minute, 20 seconds per lap. So, honestly, Andrew, I think ATVO is semi-right, but also semi-wrong. I think timing, it's so close that it does not know if it's going to be laps or the time limit, so it's just going off the time limit.
I think what it's doing is calculating the time left based on laps. As Jason Duckworth has trouble, he is into the pit lane in car 73. Maybe not trouble, but a pit stop. And Zach Millette, hangs it out, is working on passing Brian Rose here. I think with ATVO, and this is something we see in lap racing with ATVO, it's something I think we're going to have to cope with, and maybe we'll add a timer for next week's race. It's calculating the amount of time that the laps remaining will take, because as we come around onto the front stretch here with Zach Millette, who is leading overall, it's telling me 2 minute 40, 2 minute 39, and that's consistent with 1 minute 18 lap times. So it's calculating the exact time left as we take 2 laps to go, that time by the flag stand for Zach Millette. And he has got up to 11th place, now 1 lap down, as Brian Rose is the next car that he will come up to. And Jason Duckworth goes immediately off the race course on no tires, only fuel. And there goes Chris Goins right by him for an overall spot as Mark Thomas approaches.
Yeah, when we're talking about overall, Kevin McCann is still second overall, first for leading the late model stock cars.
He just took it back because Duckworth pitted.
Brian McCann is the next late model stock car in line, and he is third overall because of what happened with Duckworth.
Parker Collins, though, only 1.9 seconds back, and we know the Super is faster than the late model stock by more than that if it's able to be unleashed. However, all of these cars right now are lapping in the 121s, and some of the late model stocks, in fact, last lap, Kevin McCann was a 10th faster than Zach Millette.
What?
Yeah, last lap, McCann pulled a 10th on Zach Millette, about 9/100ths of a second. These Supers have burned stuff up to where they're running in the 121s, 122s. in some cases. Collins a 121.7. Roberts a 122.072 as we take the white flag presented by Whiplash Simcams for Zach Millett. Kevin McCann will come around and do the same thing here in just a moment. That last lap, by the way, for Zach Millett, a 121.404. This lap for Kevin McCann across the line, we can use the qualifying timer to tell you, is a last lap, a 121.332.
How interesting. Again, surprises coming from this race. Just so interesting to see.
And Millett's been taking tires. McCann has not taken tires at all this race.
The late model stock cars, more horsepower, obviously much faster. They are just overall more dominant as we come around. And
other way around, the late model stock has less power than a super, and is built very differently. I think it's that the supers are that difficult to drive on this setup. As out of turn 4 on the speedway, here comes Zach Millett down to the checkers. Checkered flag for car 315, and checkered flag in our inaugural race for the Noble Can-Am Series. Kevin McCann works back up onto the oval here. He'll be working through the banking with the help of Neil Quick out front. And car 33 has a 14-second gap back to the other McCann, Brian McCann. Now make that 15 seconds. As Kevin works up off the banking, it is a checkered flag for car 33.
And let me just get my wristwatch out here as we try to count the seconds to Parker Collins and Brian McCann to come back around and take the checkered flag.
15 seconds to McCann, another 2 to Collins. Interesting how this race has worked out, how these tires have burnt off, and things have definitely changed. And Steve Singer even now is catching Sean Roberts on the banking. Not at all what we would have expected as Singer finishes 3rd in class, Roberts finishes 3rd in class. Here's Johnny Rapp off the banking, right ahead of Chris Goins by about 4 seconds. There's Goins, who will finish 4th. Mark Thomas and Jason Duckworth will finish 5th, each in their classes. And finally, Brian Rose will be the final car to finish here today at Homestead Miami Speedway. Checkered flag for Rose, and the race officially goes checkered. Zach Millett, your race winner.
What an absolutely crazy race, to say the least. So many interesting changes going on throughout the field. You now have your 2 winners for each class. Obviously, Zach Millett, overall winner. He put on a masterclass, and like you said, Andrew, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of this throughout the season.
Absolutely. This Audi decaled 315 will be the top car this season. I know that for a fact. He might not win every race, he might not make every race, but he will be the dominant car when he's able to show up. That is just the Zach Millett way, as he parks here next to Kevin McCann, the late model stock race winner. So a very unique series yields a very unique race and end result. Millett and McCann, your top 2. It looks like no burnouts here from these drivers. Oh, here we go. Maybe we'll get some. Yes! We're going to burn them down here in Miami.
A little bit more difficult with the late model stock car, being as it has a little bit more grip, but Kevin McCann doing an absolutely stellar job to burn that sucker down as Zach Millett walks it down the front straightaway.
Millett burning some rubber, McCann doing the same. Very well-deserved celebrations for each of these drivers after a long hour of racing. 38 laps did go complete here at Homestead Miami Speedway, and Zach Millett's going to reverse it into the pit lane right to... Where is he going?
He's behind the wall.
I wonder what the end goal here is.
Is he pulling a Trevor Bayne 2011? Trying to find out where he's supposed to go? Taking it all the way to victory lane.
I'm surprised he made it this far.
Can you actually go into victory lane at Homestead Miami?
I don't think you can go in, but you can get to the victory lane apparently, as he has done. And it looks like the McCann's doing joint burnouts on the front stretch. I'm impressed. I never would have known that, Zach Millette. And, you know, I know a lot of weird little tricks about some of these tracks, weird places you could get into just because I do these preps.
Oh, he tried.
Yeah, he tried. Because I do prep work for these racetracks. I did not know about that one. That is a surprise to me. But let's go back and take a look at our unofficial race results here at Homestead Miami Speedway. Zach Millette in victory lane by 28 seconds over Kevin McCann. Another 16 seconds actually to Brian McCann. Parker Collins there 46 seconds back. And you can see here, Zach, a full look at the top 10. Exactly an even Stevens split of 5 supers, 5 late model stocks in the top 10.
Yeah, every single one of these drivers were top 5 in their class. It's something you don't usually see, but it's really interesting to see it happen, and I do like seeing it. Just, you know, not to quote Thanos here or anything, but just perfectly balanced as all things should be. And it was just honestly, it was a great race, Andrew. You see Zach Millette leading, then you have Kevin McCain and Brian McCain, or excuse me, McCann. I've been doing that all race, and I do apologize to both of them if they are watching this broadcast. But rolling through the rest of the field, we only have one super late model outside the top 10. Brian Rosen, Jason Nethery in 11th and 12th, Neil Quicken, Troy Radford 13th and 14th, Eric Beadle and Joe Tucker 15th, 16th. Joe Tucker being the outlier of the super late models, being in 16th position. And just continuing on down, Jesse Redding and Leonardo Elijah 17th and 18th, and then Josh Brown and Dalton Creech being the first two to finish 2 laps down, and Matthew Kopp, Cecil Rose, Cody Anderson being your only super late model. Oh wait, no, he did come back on track. We assumed he DNF, but he came back out on track. Robert Hattenback and Mark Truxell. Mark Truxell actually was one driver that DNF there at the end. He finished quite a number of laps down.
That he did, unfortunately, for the number 5. But let's bring in tonight's overall race winner to get this season kicked off. And I think we'll be talking about this guy a whole lot more. Zach Millette in car 315, dominating this evening. At one point, the lead, I think, was 30 seconds or more. By the end, it's still 28 seconds over the late model stock field. Zach, this race broke every expectation we had and surprised us in more ways than even in your car number, 315. What was it like from your perspective? Were you surprised at all?
A little bit, man. I was just trying to keep the tires on the thing. It got pretty slick after 5 laps on the stint. So it was after the first initial run there where everybody kind of got separated. It became a little easier to kind of take care of it. When you're running close to cars or behind lap traffic, it gets pretty dicey.
Yeah, we saw a lot of you supers just trying to put power down and swerving all over the place, trying to fishtail and correct. Do you think that's going to be a challenge every round of this season, or is it just Homestead between the surface and the temperatures?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be pretty much everywhere. I know that, like you said, the temperature, it probably didn't help too much, but yeah, I think these things are kind of a handful no matter where we go.
And of course, with a fixed setup, that means everybody has the same setup to work with. No matter how many practice laps you put in, you're not able to change it. Do you think that's going to be a limitation, or do you think that's going to bring the field closer together as it often does in fixed racing?
That's kind of my favorite. I like how it puts it in the driver's hand. You know, it makes everybody on equal playing field, and it really makes it interesting. And everybody's kind of battling the same battles through the race, you know, hanging on to it. So it's I think it's better to do it like that.
And hey, before we let you go, how about the pit strategy? How close were you guys to make it on a 1-stop, or was it a 2-stop cut and dry the entire time?
Yeah, it was definitely a 2-stop. I really wanted to do it in just 1 and be done, but yeah, it was trying to remember how many laps short. It was quite a few, though. I actually almost missed it the first time. I tried to stretch it, and yeah, if I missed the last time, I would have been out of luck.
Well, there you go. Zach Millette, overall race winner, 36 laps led at a 38 run, 29 seconds nearly ahead of Kevin McCann by the end of it. Congratulations, and I know we're going to be talking to you a lot this season.
I hope so, man. I'm looking forward to this season. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That it is. Zach, thanks for your time. We'll be talking to you, I'm sure, next week at Lime Rock.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Next up then, Zach, Kevin McCann goes to victory lane. And the two McCanns or as close as you could have put two of the same name on the racetrack this evening, still spread out by 15 seconds. But here is the leading of the two, Kevin McCann, winning in late model stocks.
Yeah, Kevin McCann was able to take advantage of some things going on late in the race with Singer obviously having some issues, but just kind of walk us through how your race went and how you were able to take that spot away and eventually just really walk away with it.
Yeah, I think I got a little lucky there. He made that that mistake there late in the race after the pit stops. So we were coming up on lap traffic. These cars are extremely tough to pass. There's no draft, which was weird. I thought the lower horsepower we'd have big draft on the oval part of the track, but that wasn't the case. So you kind of had to pick your moments when you're going to try to make a move, and usually going through lap traffic was the place to do it. So the lap traffic coming up, he makes a little mistake, and I'm just going to throw it in if there's an opportunity, and it stuck. So got the track position then, and then I think he made a mistake under braking in that next lap there that ultimately just handed it to me. So it was pretty much just clear sailing from there, just trying to take care of the tires and trying to make sure I had the fuel strategy right, which was something I didn't think about coming into the race. So I was having to do a little math while going around the racetrack there.
Absolutely, and you were able to just really find a way to continue forward. And one thing that we were talking about all race is tire strategy and fuel strategy. Andrew was bringing it up not too long ago, but how close were you guys on the fuel strategy for being able to make those cars one stops and just running it to the rest of the race?
I don't think it was possible, at least not in my class. I think the super lates had a bigger fuel cell, but I don't know what kind of mileage they were getting. So it was definitely a two-stopper for us, but it was a pretty easy two-stopper. We short fueled it there in that last one there. Only took a few gallons to make it to the end.
Absolutely, and one thing we all noticed actually towards the end of the race was the fact that you guys in the late model stock cars were able to do a lot better over the course of a longer run than the super late models were. You guys were not taking tires, you were only taking fuel, and you were able to continue on and actually run faster lap times within the last 5 laps compared to the super late models. Just kind of tell us how the tire wear overall was for the late model stock cars and just being able to run the race on what you guys had.
Yeah, it was completely different. I actually was originally going to run the super late models. I made a switch at the last second, so I had done some practice in the other car. And that's one thing I noticed. Tire wear in that car was pretty extreme. It felt like, like a cup car or the NASCAR trucks on a road course where you're not really getting full throttle, getting off the corners, you're half throttle, just babying it, trying to get it to go. And it just deteriorated, worse over the run. These cars were actually a little bit different in the fact that you could overheat them and you would pay the price for the next couple laps. But as long as you backed off and cooled them down, you could run pretty much the same lap times throughout the whole stint. So I never took tires, and I was, matching my quickest time there toward the end of the run. I know the track was getting a little cooler, but I really wasn't pushing as hard as I could have as well. So I think these cars, it kind of reminds me of driving go-karts, which I have experience in. Is just you don't want to overheat them, you don't want to abuse them, and if you keep them under you can do pretty good over the course of a long run.
Well, it's definitely great to hear that you got a lot of success tonight out of these late model stock cars and were able to take a class win overall. And yeah, just amazing run tonight. We definitely look forward to seeing you at Lime Rock next week.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Well, Andrew, we've heard from the winner of the late model stock car portion of tonight. I believe we have a few others that we have to take a word from.
That would do. The rest of the top 3 from late model stocks are in the waiting room, so we'll bring in Brian McCann, who goes second place. And Brian, what's the relation, first of all, to the driver that finished right ahead of you?
That'd be my brother.
Well, you definitely mirrored each other like brothers on the racetrack, and eventually it ends up being Kevin that comes to victory lane. You're 15 seconds shy. What went wrong for your number 3? What could you have done differently?
Probably practice a little bit more. I'd practiced a little bit before the race and one other day, but this is my first time in this car. It's not my first time road racing, but I'm a little bit more better at the ovals not really so hot at the road track. So I got a little bit to learn. Kevin's a whole lot better at road than I am. So him and Steve was fast as well, but Steve had a little mistake there and helped me get in front of him. But other than that, I would have been third. But overall, pretty good race. Glad to come out here and, it's a great group of guys, of an interesting dynamic with the super late models, because we were in the late models a little faster than the super late models in the middle part of the track. So that was interesting.
That it was. You guys had the cornering speed, they had the straight line, and it definitely made for an interesting dynamic, like you say. How do you think this dynamic is going to go for some other racetracks, other road courses on the schedule where there's less on throttle time consecutively for them to pull away? I mean, Lime Rock next week, a very fast racetrack, but it's not consecutively on throttle for over half the racetrack like it is here at Homestead. How do you think it's going to go next week at Lime Rock and other racetracks in the schedule?
Yeah, me and Kevin were talking about that during this race, and we're thinking the late models may be faster at Lime Rock. Either that or very similar in speed. So I think we're going to be mixed up a whole lot more with them at the next track.
How chaotic is that? Have you ever done multi-class racing before?
Just here and now, every now and then I have, not much. This is probably I estimate maybe my 5th multi-class race ever.
There you go, getting some good multi-class practice then if you ever run IMSA or anything like that. Brian, thanks for talking to us. Thanks for your time. Congratulations. P2 in class tonight.
Thank you.
Brian McCann, position number 3 overall. And Zach, that means Steve Singer, 3rd place in late model stock and 6th overall, is here to talk to you as well from Car 6.
Yeah, Steve Singer, who started on pole for the late model stock car division and was able to get back up to about 3rd place after a few on-track incidents. Just kind of tell us how things went for you and how you really ended up in this precarious position of still being able to nab a podium, but not where we think you'd finish.
Well, all things considered, I'll take it with a grain of salt. Jumping out from behind the microphone and getting back behind the wheel again. A lot of rust. Made some mistakes. Unfortunately, turn 6 is my arch nemesis now. I wheel hopped it pretty bad trying to stay off of Kevin McCann early in the race. And then after the pit stop, got right into Mark Thomas. Nothing I could have done at that point. Locked him up offline, big time wheel hop. And I hate it for Mark. I talked to him immediately. I said, man, I'm sorry. That was on me. But it is what it is. We battled back. I don't know if I could have got around Mark without that contact. I just don't know. I know we were kind of battling back and forth. And I don't know. Hindsight's 2020. We'll see what happens next week at Lime Rock. But I talked to Mark. Hopefully he's cooled off a bit.
Absolutely. And just a few mistakes that ended up happening that really took you out of that winning position. And just kind of tell us, was it down to tires on some runs? I know a lot of the late model stock cars did not take tires. You guys stayed on them for pretty much the entire race. Did it feel any different overall, or were you able to just keep on trucking with what you had?
Well, I mean, in practice, I didn't really run any really long runs. I probably went maybe 12 laps at the most on a set of tires in practice sessions. But I said, you know what, I'm going to try it. I'm going to go without tires and see what happens. The first set, as it wore out, got light on fuel, it wasn't that great. But the second time around, after my final stop, the end of the race, a couple of laps to go, I was within a tenth of my best lap of the day. The car felt consistent all race long. There really wasn't a whole lot of adjustments. I never touched the brake bias the entire night. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes at Lime Rock.
Absolutely. Well, you still finished quite good today, even after some on-track incidents that took you out of winning contention. You were able to push it back up there and really do just pretty good, honestly. And one thing we asked a couple of the other late model stock car drivers about, how did the power difference feel overall compared to the super late models? You guys were running consistent lap times, overall better lap times within the last 5-10 laps compared to the super late models. Did you feel like if the race gone longer and they didn't take tires, do you think maybe you guys would have been competing for an overall win?
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I think there's going to be a race, maybe even 2 this season, where the late model stock may have an opportunity to take the overall win. It could be even next week. We'll see. Really small road course out at Lime Rock. It's kind of like the short track road course, I guess the way we could explain that one. But I think when we get into Long Beach, in my practices and my testing, it almost seems like I think the late model could be the faster car overall there. We'll see how it plays out. I know some of the guys in the super late, they took tires. Like I said, I did not. A lot of late model stock guys did not, and I just don't think there's going to be a need for it. There may be some tracks throughout the schedule that may warrant that, but I guess we'll see.
Well, you put in a great performance tonight. You finished P3 in class and pretty well overall. I believe you finished 6th overall, which was definitely an outstanding performance, and we definitely look forward to seeing you next week at Lime Rock.
All right, Zach. Thanks, man.
No problem. And Steve finishes 3rd tonight on the podium for the late model stock cars. And Andrew, it seems like Steve has the same opinion that I did early on in the race, where he thinks these late model stock cars may be pretty well contending for overall victories at some races this season.
They just might in a couple of races. I think Lime Rock is, now that we've seen a full race play out, I think Lime Rock is a contender. Mid-Ohio as well, I think is a contender. Mosport possibly. Other than that, maybe Long Beach, like he said, and possibly if there's enough chaos at Sonoma, it could happen at Sonoma as well. I think the other tracks, Montreal, Watkins Glen, and Road Atlanta, have enough straight lines, enough straightaway that the Supers will definitely pull away. Certainly at Road Atlanta on that backstretch, and Montreal. I think all three of those racetracks are givens with their longer straightaways and higher speed tendencies. But the twistier tracks or just shorter tracks like Lime Rock would be a question mark. Mosport as well, where it's much more sweeping and it's really going to work those tires in over the course of a race. Mid-Ohio, yes, there's that long straightaway from the keyhole down to China Beach, but I also just don't know if the tires will hold up through the rest of the course for the Supers. So it sounds like the Supers have a really soft compound. The late model stocks have a really hard compound. And you know what, Zach? I think that even lines up with real-world expectations. If you go to a Cars Tour race these days, they're running a set of tires for probably the whole 125-lap race. If you go to a super late model race, they're going to change tires a couple times.
Absolutely, and I think one track that it may be a little bit of a stretch, but I think one track that we could look forward to seeing maybe the late model stock cars take an overall victory. I think Road Atlanta is going to be one of the best tracks for that to happen at. It's got a lot of technical sections, and with these late model stock cars having such grip, I think overall it would be a lot more beneficial towards their standards, and I think they'll be able to have a better chance of competing for an overall win. Just the overall technical sections at Road Atlanta make it that much more interesting, and it looks to me that overall it's more of a driver-centric track towards the late model stock cars than it will be towards the super late models. But
you've got two really long throttle zones from turn 5 to turn 6 and from turn 7 to turn 10. Really, especially that backstretch at Road Atlanta, you can land a plane on, and that's going to play right to the one strength it seems like the super late model has. What is that, Zach?
That is straight line speed.
Yep. That's going to be, I think, what you have to look for. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve has several straightaways where I think that the super rather is going to walk away. We saw it even early in the race. Recall when we took that onboard of Steve Singer as he pulled up on Cody Anderson? I think it was lap 1 or 2. He was on Cody out of turn 7. Cody pulled away. Sure, Cody sent it about 5 zip codes too deep in turn 8, but he pulled away very quickly. They have got the gear, they have got the power. The Supers walk away in a straight line. You need the constant corners to bring them back. I think that's where, admittedly, Canadian Tire does have the long Andretti straightaway. Maybe the tire wear cancels that out, I'm not sure. I think places like Sonoma, less consistent on throttle time, and Long Beach, less consistent on throttle time. Lime Rock, less consistent on throttle time. Those are the racetracks where I think it's going to even out. But who knows? We still have a whole season to get through of 9 races, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch for sure. Thanks for being here tonight. We really do appreciate it. Of course, all of our partners here at Pit Stop TV appreciate you tuning in. Those being Whiplash Media Simcams, ATVO, and CC's Business. We certainly appreciate their partnerships with this channel and the fact that we use the ATVO software. We, of course, use Whiplash Media Simcams, and CC's Business is a brand new local business in North Carolina sprouting up off the ground and selling honey soaps, all homemade stuff, honey soaps with essential oils in them, wax melts, all kinds of crafts like that. Check out more on CC's Business Facebook page, Instagram, TikTok, all of the sort. And of course, a big shout out to those who make it happen behind the scenes for us in audio, ATVO, Whiplash Media, SimCams, OBS, and iRacing.com. For myself, Zach Murtis, who was a fantastic booth partner as always, and everybody here at Pit Stop TV, thank you so much for tuning in. That is going to do it. Round 1 of the Noble Can-Am Series. Definitely did not expect how things went. Definitely don't know what to expect at Lime Rock, but we'll see you there. Wait, Zach, I did it. I've done this a time or two. We have upcoming broadcasts here at the channel. Let's talk about this first. I was about to clear our mics. Andrew. Yeah, I was about to clear our mics, and I recalled. Tomorrow night, we begin a new venture with Elite Performance Industries at raceepi.com. The Dirt Car Pro Late Model Series kicking off at Port Royal Speedway. Thursday, we take the North American Racing League to the Nürburgring on June 15th at 8:30 Eastern. And finally, Sunday evening, we come right back around to Lime Rock Park. Now, that broadcast coverage is still TBD from us here at Pit Stop TV, but we are working to make that happen, and we'll let everybody know in the league Discord, I'm sure, very, very soon. That will do it for us here at Pit Stop TV, though. Make sure to follow along on our social media. Their links were just below. Now, to the credits screen. Here we go. In audio, ATVO, Whiplash, SimCams, OBS, and iRacing.com. I only did this about 7 hours ago. Anyways, thanks everybody for tuning in. We will see you all next time.